Welcome, 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 welcome to Love Tips and Velvet Lips. I am your host, Marla Renee Stewart, here live on Facebook, on YouTube, and on Instagram. And I'm super excited today to bring you a wonderful, wonderful guest, Annette Benedetti. But before we talk to Annette, make sure you submit your questions. You can submit them, you can leave them in the comments on Facebook or YouTube. If you're on Instagram, you can feel free to DM me, or you can comment on the live video in the feed. Feel free to send any questions that you might have in there. And in addition, please make sure, if you haven't subscribed to me already to get your free weekly intimacy advice, please make sure you go to velvetlips.kit.com/subscribe for that. All right. Well, without further ado, I would love to bring on my guest today. I have the amazing Annette Benedetti, who talks about one of the challenges that she created was the 365 days of doing the Big O. So welcome, Annette. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. So I'm super excited because when I heard about this challenge many years ago. I saw the book around a woman who talked about 365 days, just a whole year of making love to her husband, and how it changed her life, and how it was a sort of an impetus to understand why sexuality or sensuality is so important in our lives. So I would love to first give an introduction, tell the people about who you are.
Yeah. So I am an intimacy coach, and I have a podcast called Talk Sex with Annette. I know we got to be careful about saying that. And basically, for the last 4.5 years, I've had my podcast, and I address all of the questions people have about intimacy and all of the things that you can do to improve your intimacy with yourself and with, of course, other people. So that's me in a nutshell.
Nice, nice. Okay, so if you're not following Annette, please make sure you are following Annette. So tell me about your experience. First of all, when did you do this year-long thing? What made you decide to do it? And tell me about more of your journey around the 365 days of the Big O.
Yeah, so it was in 2022. I'd been doing my podcast for a while. I had been studying intimacy and all of the different approaches. I was in a relationship that was hot and heavy at the time. And I basically joke that I came off of an intimacy fueled and alcohol fueled night of fun for New Year's Eve. And I had had such good intimacy with my partner. I was like, I am going to embark on this journey because I'm confident I can do it. Now, a little bit of a backstory is that I am an SA survivor. And so for most of my younger years, I really struggled to have the Big O, like in all ways. And I was told growing up that it was normal. And that was sort of the story that I was fed, and that you just had to enjoy whatever kind of pleasure you got out of it. What I didn't realize is that a lot of my blockage to the Big O was coming from a place of trauma and my mind and my body protecting me, right? But through kind of doing this podcast and finding my voice and learning more about intimacy, I had started opening channels to experiencing pleasure and the Big O, not just the Big O from the external being, which, that's kind of your quick entrance to experiencing the Big O, but also finding our G friend and our A spot friend, which I thought I would never experience. It was something I just thought was normal for me not to be able to experience. And I had started experiencing all of these new kinds of pleasure. So coming off New Year's Eve and having this great evening with my partner, I was like, this is what I'm going to do. And of course, I solidified it by announcing it to the world because I felt so confident in my ability to do it. I did not realize how challenging it was going to be. I think something else that was really fascinating to me was the difference between um, men and male-bodied people and women and female-bodied people who, when I would tell them about what I was doing, like oftentimes men would be like, oh, that's, their response was very much like, whatever, I've been doing that since I was 15. And on the other hand, women in particular, cis women, would be like, oh my God, that sounds exhausting. That was the primary response from women. Like, I'd never want to do that. Maybe try a week, but not like a month. And so that kind of fueled my interest in like exploring uh, the experience. And I mean, I don't know what I was thinking at the time, honestly. Like, I can do this. It'll be great. Pleasure every day. I didn't realize how much it would actually change my entire life.
Oh
Right.
my gosh. So before we get to like how it changed your entire life, I would love to go back to, being an SA survivor and, you were thinking about all of these different blockages that you were having. And so when you were investing in your pleasure and thinking about like, okay, how do I help myself? What were some of the tools or techniques or tactics that you use to kind of open up yourself a little bit more so that you could possibly be on the journey to the big O?
Well, I mean, I think the funny thing is that I didn't even know that's what I was trying to do, right?
Mm,
I mean, it was like, so some of the myths around SA survivors is there's this idea that they don't want to be touched and that they are opposed to intimacy, right? But there are different ways that that trauma can show up in your life. One is actually the opposite end of that, which is hyper intimacy,
mm,
like wanting a lot of it, which can be trying to seek control and or trying to minimize the meaning of the event, right? And I tended to be more on that side of it. So I was throughout my life, I've been very active, but not getting kind of the pleasure, the ultimate pleasure, the big O out of it. I mean, it would be pleasurable
right.
sometimes not. Sometimes it was more of an emotional charge. So when I started on the journey, which really started with finding my voice with my podcast, right?
Mm,
Being able to talk about intimacy out loud and not have it destroy my life, which I think a lot of women in particular feel like if they're open about talking about intimacy, open talking about enjoying it, wanting to do it in different ways with different people, that if that word gets out, then they're going to be a ruined woman. That's like an idea. So for me, reclaiming my voice, of course, was really empowering. And then, of course, at that point, self pleasure, self love really was, now looking back, very boring, right? Like just stimulating the bean, maybe using a vibe.
mm,
Um, but then as time went on and I learned more, I got new toys. I had a partner who was explore. We pretty much got together because we both wanted to explore um, BDSM and stuff like that.
mm,
So I was able to do a lot of exploration with sensation and um, getting spicy together
mhm,
and just and stuff like that. So through that exploration in a relationship, as well as learning from talking to experts in the arena of intimacy, I started to open up new pathways and experience G spot pleasure for the first time, which I didn't even know I thought some people didn't have one. That's kind of the
mm,
messaging I got growing up. Oh, not everybody has that. I don't
mhm,
know if that's familiar to you, but that was just like constant messaging to me. And one
mhm,
day she woke up because my body was starting to trust me more. And that's really what it's about, is like building trust with your body again, because your
Yeah.
body is doing its job, even if your mind doesn't know it, numbing you out,
Mhm.
shutting things down is its way of protecting you from pain,
Right.
um, and whatever might happen to you. And slowly my body started going, oh, okay, so when we do this, this is like safe and
Yeah.
pleasurable. So at my nerve endings woke
Something
up
kinda
again,
woke
and they
'em,
were like,
yeah.
hey, I wanna check this out, because I think I can open up and not be hurt. And I think an important thing to say here is, yes, you know, being an SA survivor, there was sort of that event,
Mhm.
the big event. But I think that what women and people with vulvas don't understand is that oftentimes we experience what someone called once, and I don't know that I love this term, but small t, like the
Mhm,
small
yeah,
trauma,
small T.
which is
Mhm, mhm,
gritting our teeth through uncomfortable intimacy,
mhm,
right? So many of us do that to please our partner. And our body learns, this hurts, but I've got to get through it. Shut down sensation,
mhm,
right? So I can get through this without having to be in pain, right?
mhm,
Um, and that trust is broken with your body then in intimacy. So you
mhm,
have to rebuild that and say, no, every time we do this, it's going to be safe. And the minute it feels bad, I'm going to stop it. And it's sort of this like thing running in the back of your mind that you don't even know that's going on, right?
mm.
So that's what really started to open me up to new ways to feel pleasure. And then when I started to feel pleasure in a different, like it was like, there were times I was like, oh, what is that? Like, I didn't know I could feel that.
Mhm.
Um, then
It
I started to explore how to wake that up, right?
Yeah, yeah. You really it sounds like to me like you really created the safety and security not only for yourself, but I mean, also I think it's important that you had a partner that you were playing with that you could feel safe and secure and build up that trust in your body. And I think a lot of times, especially with clients that I have, they are lacking that trust factor, not only in themselves, but in their lovers. I have a client right now who is like haven't had an orgasm for 20 years. And you know what I mean? And like that kind of thing is like, oh, now we have to go back. We have to figure out how to like build that trust back into your body, how to build it up with a partner. And then if the partner's been there's been infidelity, because of the lack of the big O, or the lack of, wanting to build up that safety and security, that can really do damage on your relationship. So I just like applaud you for even not only, like I said, building up that safety and security in yourself and understanding what these new sensations are, but also having that support and partner who you were able to trust and move through all of these things with. And I imagine you probably shared with your partner all the things that were waking up in your body as well.
Yeah. So, I mean, the year ended up being interesting because I was with that partner, but within 2 or 3 months, and we went through a breakup.
Mm. Oh.
And then got back together. And so the relationship itself, like, and I will say, I'll give, that this person is no longer my partner. That person definitely was key
Mhm.
to exploring and finding um, trust with another person. But also then maintaining my ability to stay connected with myself through a breaking of that trust and a breakup. And that was part of the learning process too, which was using the big O as part of emotional healing and
Mm.
emotional outlet, because I was going through this breakup, and I was so devastated. I was
Mhm.
devastated. And I was like, "Oh, and now I've got to do this thing like that
Mhm.
I committed to in front of everyone." And the last thing I wanted to do was experience pleasure. I was like, because I also was connecting it to that relationship, but I was so committed at that point that I did. And so I would self love and have the big O, and this like what I'd feel this grief would come with the wave
Mm.
of the big O. And it was interesting because when that grief would arise and I let it, because what surprised me the most is realizing how often we try to suppress grief and pain.
Mm-hmm.
We want to run from the feeling, but when you're in the middle of a big O, you can't really, like, it's happening. It's happening. And it just brings out like all of these feelings. And I think what I learned through, the months of doing that and kind of going through the grief was that it was unlocking not just grief for that relationship,
Mm-hmm.
but that I had that, lifelong grief that I hadn't dealt with, that was sort of attached to that intimate energy, that I was now just like connecting with. And I think it gave me the opportunity to claim that pleasure as my own. Whereas oftentimes it's like, I think at first I was like, oh, I can only do this because I have this partner I'm in love with. And if I lose that partner, then I lose this thing. What if I
Mm-hmm.
can't feel that anymore? And then I realized, no, that like I'm the one who's making that happen. This
Mm-hmm.
person is lucky to be a partner in it and built enough trust that he was able to help me access it. But just because he goes away or he isn't honest with me or he hurts me or breaks my
Mm-hmm.
trust or like breaks whatever boundaries we have doesn't mean he gets to break my connection with myself, because
Right.
that's mine and
Right.
I'm the magic that's making it happen, right?
Nice. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. That's super insightful. Just thinking about how we are processing our own self-care, self-pleasure, how we are maintaining ourselves and understanding ourselves as beings, of course, independently of anybody else, regardless of how all the different emotions that we can, go through or run through, during these times. So, um, you mentioned how, well, first, actually, I would love to talk briefly about the big O, before we get into sort of like the changes that, that happen with you. But because I am one of those, educators, sexologists that like, I don't care what anybody says. The big O is important. Like, a lot of times I have colleagues that are like, pleasure is the most important thing, and the big O is just sort of like the cherry on top, and I'm just like, nah, like I don't believe that at all, right? And I'm very adamant about it, because I believe that we should all be experiencing this amazing euphoric experience, and I don't think we should push it down or numb it down just because maybe you haven't experienced it before, or maybe you don't experience it often. I don't think that brings down the value of what it could bring to your life once you start opening up your body a little more. So that is my take on it. But I would love to hear, especially because, you were very purposeful in 365 days. So clearly I'm thinking that the big O must be also important to you too. Or maybe how do you feel it's
Mm-hmm.
the cherry on top? Do you feel it's, like, what are your thoughts about that?
Well, so first of all, let's think about, I mean, just like, let's address the fact that when we talk about the big O with men and people with penises, like they are like, oh, yeah, I do it all the time. And
Mm-hmm.
then when I brought up my challenge with women, they were like, oh my God, that sounds like.
Exhausting. You're like,
And also, I'm just like, why would that be? Right?
mm,
I believe that women have been purposefully cut off from their ability to have the big O, because when we are able to access it whenever we want to on our terms for ourselves, like I am a different person than I
mm,
have ever been. And my friends will tell you, the people who know me, I walk into a room and I am a different person
mm,
now that I have access to my own sexual energy. It is an
mm-hmm,
energy
mm-hmm,
that defines the power with which you walk through this world, right? And I believe that I believe that all women are born with it, but that we are actively severed from it because, you know, honestly, maybe men wouldn't run the world if no,
Mhm.
I'm not even going to say maybe. I think that the power that we have when we're connected to it, it really is sort of the key to like running the world, right?
Mhm.
And you hear it all the time right now when you hear, men talk about being, angry that they can't, that that what is it I always hear? Basically, women are the gatekeepers to intimacy.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I don't think it's untrue, right? Like they'll say, "Oh, women can have it whenever they want to." And women don't always know this. Like sometimes I'm surprised at how women are like, "Oh, it's so hard to find somebody." I'm like, "It's not. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not. You just believe that because
Mhm.
you're less powerful when you believe that,
Mhm.
right?" So, I think the big O is important because it's your birthright to have that level of pleasure. Um, because it also summons that energy in you, knowing you have access to it. I mean, not even to talk about the health benefits, which I'm sure, you've talked to your audience about over and over again. Like it is like taking a super vitamin every day. The
Mm.
chemicals in your body that are released, right? Um, the hormones that are released and all of that. But it's so empowering. And I'm not saying pleasure isn't too.
Right.
But there is something I know that when I felt like I couldn't have a big O and that was normal, I felt disconnected from myself. I felt the disconnection from
Mm.
myself, right? I
Mhm.
felt like something was missing because it was.
Mm.
And I think when you know that that is yours to be had at your pace, at your time, at your intensity, and in all these different ways,
Yeah.
you feel whole.
Mhm. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, I think there's something to be said, like what you talked about like just being able to walk into a room and your energy shifting, your energy being different, and people noticing that about you. And I think there's, something empowering to be said about that. I think, sexual energy is one of the biggest, best energies that you can have because it floods your everyday life. And when I tell people, like, if you are in a corporate environment, when you go into if you're close to your colleagues, when someone's gotten laid the night before. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And like that kind of energy, you're just like, there's something to be said about that. Like if other people can see this energy, then who's to say how else can you harness or harness that energy. My background is in psychology, so sometimes I think about sublimation and like using that energy for other things in your life, right? And so I think that's a way to kind of harness it and keep it moving. um yeah.
Yeah, no. I mean, I always talk about on my podcast how we try to compartmentalize sexual energy and put
Mm.
it over in this dirty corner. It's only supposed to be used at night or whenever we're
Mhm.
behind closed doors. But we're the ones labeling that energy and saying
Mhm.
it's only to be used here, when in actuality, it floods every moment of your day when you're connected to it, right? You
Mm.
don't get to take energy and put it in a corner. It's in everything you do. It just
Mhm.
is an energy that feels different, right?
Mhm.
And so when you go to work, or when you go to the grocery store, or whatever you're doing, it's there and you can
Mhm.
feel it in your body. And when I say that, I don't, like people instantly think that, oh, you mean you feel wet? No, it's like this energy that runs through your body that you can tap into at any point in time, that is
Mhm.
pleasure based and power based,
Mm.
right? It's a confidence that you can wield and use in every area of your life,
Mm.
right?
Mhm.
It's just a different type of energy. And I think that's the thing that's hard to describe to people who aren't really tapping into it, or who are still um, compartmentalizing it and only
Mhm.
trying to tap into it when they get home and they're with their partner. And that's part of why intimacy can feel exhausting, especially to women, because it's like all day you're cut off from it and you're grinding through. I get up, I take the kids, I drop them off, I go to work, and then you're supposed to come home and like figure out how to tap into that energy and get it revved up and then get involved with your partner. But
Right.
if you're tapped into it from the time you wake up to the
Mm-hmm.
time you get home, then getting into like actual intimacy with another person or with yourself, for a large part of my 365 days, I was my own lover,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I think that time alone with yourself, like I am also my best lover. I will tell you that
Yes.
right now. Like I'm
Mm.
great. I'm a great lover. And I had to learn to be that over the course of the year, because very quickly at the beginning of that year, I was like, oh my God, I'm really bad in bed. I got bored.
Mm.
I was
Oh,
like, I'm
wow.
so bad in bed. And so I had to become my own best lover, right? How do I
Mm.
do this every day and not get bored, right? Or not
Mm.
struggle? But now I get excited to make that time for myself, or I love a midday quickie with myself,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm tapped into that energy all day long.
Yeah. So, like, when thinking about how you kind of maybe romanced yourself, I would love to hear more because you spent so much time alone. I've had, friends, other educators, other colleagues be like, ugh, I'm just bored of maybe the same toys, or I'm bored of like having sex with myself. Like I'm ready to have a partner. And I think a lot of times we rely, just like if you were in a long-term relationship with someone, you rely on that same routine over and over and over again until you get bored. And so then you have to like, okay, what are we going to do? Or how do we figure out how to spice it up? Right. So I would love to hear more about kind of how you did that. What are the ways that you changed it up to ensure that like that you had maybe, I guess, variety within your, pleasure, well, with your self pleasure.
Right. So first of all, I like that you brought up romancing yourself. I've learned to romance myself. I'm also my best partner.
Mm.
Like, I get myself new jewelry, I get myself pretty clothes, I'm really into body products. I have different
Mm.
scents. Before I go to bed at night, I have a pheromone cologne I put on my pillow. So, like, I'm like bathed in this like sensual scent because that's what appeals to me. Now, I'm not saying every person, those things are going to appeal to them, but like any partner, you figure out what turns them on, whether it's the kind of food that like is pleasurable that they love to eat. Some people love like sweets. Some people like savory foods. I take myself out to eat. So like really just taking all the things I would put into a partner and doing them for myself
Mm.
and really treating myself that way was a big part of starting to feel worthwhile, sexy, worthy of pleasure, even though we are all innately worthy of it. We don't
Mhm.
always believe that, right?
Mhm.
But then becoming my best life, that was an interesting um journey, because it started out it would take me up to 45 minutes to
Mm.
have a big go. And pretty soon I was like, that's a big part of every day. 45 minutes. And I was
Especially when
working,
you're busy, yeah.
and it felt like work. But I learned some things really quickly, like that I was really like boring, and that I would have the toy and I would just be like frustratingly like
Mm.
vibrating away at it, quietly holding my breath, trying to get there.
Oh, yeah,
So
no.
I learned to start breathing differently,
Breathing. Mm.
making noise. That was
Mm.
a big one because I was also super quiet. I didn't make
Mm.
noise, right? And opening up my voice and making noise. Like at first it felt weird to me. Now I do it. It's like I get real loud. I say things. I learn to talk, you
Mm.
know, whether I was having a fantasy or just talking generally. So finding my voice, and at first it was awkward, but even in the awkwardness, feeling almost the vibrations of your own voice, it just
Yeah.
opens up a new channel to feeling. Then it was adding in touching other places,
Mm.
because I'd go straight for the bean and like,
Mhm.
let's go. Um, finding where pleasure and electricity lights up in other areas of my body. Like, for instance, one thing that I learned is like light sensual touches right below my belly button on my pelvic mound.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I'm getting there, will throw me over the edge, just like tickly feelings. If I
Mm.
lay a flat palm there, it totally brings me away from the big O. I didn't
Mm.
know that. So here I am with partners all the time. And for some reason, one thing they love to do is push down on
Yeah.
the mound. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
it's shutting me off.
Mm. It's like an
So
off
I
button.
found
And
that
you're
for
like,
my own. Yeah.
yeah,
Some people, though, apparently for some vulva owners,
it
it makes
wakes up
the
the internal clitoris. Yeah. Yeah.
opposite for me. So that was something I learned. Doing quickies in the middle of the day with like a new toy, like in the
Mm.
bathroom, bent over the sink, having a dirty thought about whatever that meant. Um, yeah, just mixing it up. You know, uh, if I was out, I don't know, out somewhere, going to the restroom and trying to get a quick one in and like
Mm-hmm.
doing it privately in public, just things like that.
So you're really like tapping into your creativity around it all and just being really open to where to new experiences, new things. So you're like, maybe it's in the car, or maybe it's on the sofa or in the bathroom or in the kitchen, or,
Yeah.
like you're really changing it up. And I think that is one of the key things because we know variety, unpredictability does help us to make help us to make us be like really great lovers. But at the same time, I think it's the variety piece that where if we tap into that creativity, we can like the it's endless, right? There's an endless amount of things we can do when we tap into those ideas. But some people, I think it's hard for them. It's really hard for them to be creative. And so one of the things that I, like to promote is really kind of sometimes even erotica, because even erotica can maybe conjure up some ideas for you. It helps, if you're a visual person, it helps to, bring it to the imagination. Um, but with that said, I think a lot of people depend on porn, or, the other visual kind of stuff. So,
I
um,
I want to have this conversation with you because I've actually been thinking about it. I was listening to someone else, another educator who's very kind of anti corn, we'll call it corn, at
yeah.
the corn. And I don't have that same feeling. And I want to talk about why. Ethically made. Let's be very clear, ethically made corn. Um, First of all, I think that it can be a really good source of creativity,
Hmm.
giving you ideas to explore
Absolutely.
and to do it safely, right? Because you're just watching it,
Hmm.
you're seeing it, you're looking at it and you're like, oh, can that happen? Right?
Hmm.
And then if you have a partner, you can watch together and go, is that something we want to try? And it's safe because you're
Hmm.
not involved in it. But you have a moment to like just kind of look at it and do I feel when I watch it? Why do
Mhm.
I have a negative reaction to it?
Mhm.
Because that's where a lot of our shame exists, right? Like some people, the idea of a threesome is like, "Ugh, I would never do that. Now I'm like, why would you never do that? And what, but I remember a time when I thought that was bad. It makes you a bad
Mm.
person. But now I've learned to question, why do I have that reaction? Why do I have judgment? Right? Why
Yeah.
do I think that's degrading instead of two people enjoying each other? And I can do it from a safe distance. And then
Mhm.
if I have a partner, we can talk about it, we can watch it together. And then if we're like, all right, it's not something I think I'm into, but how can I dip my toe in the water? And how
Mhm.
can we like play with it? What's a safe way? You know what I mean? It gives us access to new experiences in a safe way. I
Yeah.
do understand that people can use it in a way that can be harmful to their relationship. I would argue, people talk about, especially men, and it kind of bothers me. We gender it, but I understand why, get addicted to it.
Mm-hmm.
And that it's the source of the problem in their intimate relationship with someone else. I would argue it's not the source of the problem in the intimate relationship with someone else. The fact that you cannot communicate with your partner about
Mm-hmm.
intimacy and about the things you're thinking about and kind of wanting to do and explore with your partner, that's the root of the problem. The
Mm-hmm.
fact that you've got to hide and watch it here because your partner won't discuss your fantasies with you is the problem, right?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things there that I want to like talk about. One is you talked about sort of the unlearning process, right? Of like, hey, why do I think these things? Well, these scripts that I got when I was younger, was I so invested in the nurturance of these scripts, right? And so then peeling those layers back and be like, okay, let me unlearn this because I love what you said about just sort of dipping your toe in and just kind of be like, let me see why I might be thinking about these things, but also like, why wouldn't I be open to these things? Like what makes me believe that I wouldn't have some sort of pleasure from it. Right. So there was that. I really liked your sort of analysis and how to break that down of the unlearning process. And then I also wanted to say about the people being sort of anti, right? And I'm like you. I'm like, it's great for curiosity. It's great for learning something new, especially when you've been boxed in, your whole life. Or I'm in the South, so there's a lot of religious trauma here. And so, when there's, thinking about, hey, how did you get out of there? Just see, there's other people in the world that are doing, these things, and it's okay. I think the whole, especially with men, I had a client who was watching porn maybe 7 to 8 hours a day. And right. And I'm like,
Oof.
that can be, for me, I'm like, that's a problem right there, because now you're just developing this relationship with the screen, right? You're developing this
Mm.
relationship with the screen, and then you're not actually able to talk about it with a human being. Or when you're interacting with a human being, you're like, oh, I don't know what to do now because I'm not accustomed to being with another human being, right?
Mm.
And then I had a young kid, 23 years old, came to me, and his P stopped working. And when he was, with women, and he was just kind of like, I don't understand what's happening. And I was like, well, what's your relationship to corn? Let me know. And basically, because he had been watching it since such a young age, he was just sort of used to it, but also thinking that every woman was going to be as entertaining as the
That's
corn.
entertaining. I love that. Yeah. Yep.
And so that's one of the biggest problems,
Yep.
right? Is that
Mhm.
it's not for entertainment. It is a for these people, it is for him, it was just kind of like he just didn't know he was expecting so much more out of women, because he had been educated, by the corn. So
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
influenced, I should say, as well. So yeah, it's
Right.
a lot.
And I think what I hope, and I know there are a lot of there are more producers, film producers coming out that are creating um films um, from a realistic perspective to show
Yeah.
people what it really looks like, and to kind of hopefully rewire our society, at least that watches this, to see, oh, this is what I can really expect, right? Because certainly the birth of corn was performative in a ways that don't feel good, especially to vulva owners in any way whatsoever. Like, oh man, I was just talking to my girlfriend last night. Like, The pounding with the fingers, man, like that definitely comes from the corn. And I'm like, I can't stand it. It's so uncomfortable. I'm like, I know where you saw that. Can you please stop until I tell you that you may do that?
Right.
Like, ow,
Yep.
you know? And so I would agree that there's a lot of films that have been produced out there that are ruining it for
Yeah.
a
For
lot
I
of
mean,
people.
they're for the male gaze essentially, right? And
Right,
instead of the,
right.
and I think that's why I really liked like the Crash Pad series, Shine Louise Houston back in the day. That's probably like, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago. But I remember just being like, oh, this is so good. It's so, and there's a website, right? Make Love, Not Corn. So there's other,
Mhm.
other gazes that we can have. But I find it fascinating that, and you kind of mentioned this earlier, just around communication, right? People are not communicating with one another on what they like, and instead just kind of jumping in and just being like, I'm going to do this thing that I think you might like, instead of being like, hey, do you like this? Do you like that? It wasn't until like, I mean, I was like dating later on in life that I'd be like, what do you like? Tell me what you want. How do you like to be touched? What are the things you like? Like, tell me, I want to know details. Like, tell me story of the best, the best play you've ever had, so that I know that, what to conjure my ideas or my creativity, my imagination from. But yeah, we just don't talk about the patting or the banging or the,
Lord.
especially around all those things. So.
There was a really wonderful TikTok a woman did, and I've got to find. I was watching it the other day. She was like, "This is wonderful. This is bullshit." Like she and I was like, and she did several versions. I'm like, "You're right," and it was such a great demonstration. I want to be careful doing it here for your sake because I don't know
Yeah.
how the algorithm will feel about it, um, but I also have been thinking I have a lot of men reach out to me, and I
Mm,
feel like the male gaze has been curated, assumed and curated, or curated for purposes that harm everyone. Because the majority of the men that I talk to, what they really want to experience is what it's like to give someone else pleasure. Like they're
mm,
like, I want to know how to make this happen.
mm-hmm.
Like, they
Yep.
really do
Oh
want that.
yeah.
And I'm not saying clearly not all men, but
Mhm.
I think a lot of
Mhm.
men. And seeing that is what really excites them. Like when they're like, "Oh,
Oh yeah.
this is working." And they get that charge out of it. But unfortunately, the education up until now and women finally taking the microphone and saying, "Hey, how about you like listen to us instead of these quote alpha male podcasters out there, and we'll tell you, listen to us, let us educate you about what we like, what our bodies are like."
Right. Yeah.
And I think that they want that, and I think they want to. I think seeing that in corn is something they want as well, because they want to
Mhm.
be educated in that realm, and because that
Right.
is a turn on.
Yeah.
Like, what is more exciting than, watching someone really, truly, flip the switch on and be in that, you know?
Mhm.
But I also think, even with what I do, and as much as I talk about it, I still like, I have a new partner, and I even was like, I felt awkward asking, "Did you like that?" Or, even though there were things as we were being intimate, we talked ahead of time
Yeah.
and during, but it's still awkward at first.
Mhm.
It's still, you get self-conscious, and that's okay.
Mhm.
It's okay to sit in
Right.
the self-consciousness
Yeah.
and feel a little
Embrace the
silly.
awkward. Yeah.
And know
Mhm.
that's part of the process, and know that you can feel that way and like move through that feeling, and what you're going to see is like it's still okay. They're going to answer you, and if they don't talk to you about it, if they get weird about it, then you know that perhaps you've got a mismatch as a partner, right?
Mm.
Ladies,
Mhm.
if you can't talk about it, you shouldn't be doing it.
Mhm. Yep.
If you can't
Yeah.
talk about it, you shouldn't be doing it. If
Yeah.
someone makes you feel bad for saying, "Hey, I'm curious about doing this thing," or "This turned me on," um, maybe you shouldn't be with them.
Mm.
If someone's making you feel bad about that. I knew
Mm.
someone who, was watched porn and their partner found out and like made them feel like something was wrong with them. And it's not like they watched
Mm.
it for hours. It was like,
Right.
and made them feel like something was wrong with them. Well, perhaps
Mm.
if that's what your partner is doing to you, that's not the best person to be having intimacy with,
Right. Yeah.
right? Someone who's making you feel shame around it. Why are you, you know, why
Yeah.
are you being intimate with someone who makes you feel bad about intimacy?
Yeah. Why do we have a lack of discernment when it comes to these things? And why do we shut down our communication, around it? And I mean, that is so much. That's probably a whole new episode. I'll probably have to come on your podcast and talk about it because
I would love that.
I mean, I was in therapy. Like, I don't know. I'm about to like, how do I navigate these things? Like, how do I talk through these things? And that's me as an educator. So I can't even imagine someone who is not even in this realm to kind of understand their own dating discernment and what it means to tap into, that energy, around your, sexuality. So yeah,
Mhm.
it's a whole thing. Oh my gosh. This has been a wonderful conversation.
Thank you for
I,
having me on. This is a
yes,
great
yes,
conversation.
yes. So any kind of, you know, any kind of last words for folks, anything that you want them to take away, um, yeah, today.
Yeah, pleasure is your birthright. The big O is important. And if someone's telling you that it's normal not to have access to it, or if that's a messaging that you've had, it's not true, right? Also, stop putting sexual energy in the corner. Stop waiting to take it out until tonight. Wear it all day long. Discover it and live with it.
Yes. Awesome. Yes, I love it. All right, folks, this has been amazing. Please follow Annette Benedetti at Annette Benedetti everywhere on social media. Please check out Annette's podcast, Talk SEX with
With an
Annette.
Just to be clear, also that my handle in a lot of places on YouTube where you can find you can watch my podcast is at Talk
Mhm.
SEX with Annette, and on some of the other socials, but over on
Awesome.
YouTube, and then that's where you can find my audio podcast as well.
Awesome. Perfect. 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 Oh my gosh. Thank you so, so much for
Thank
being
you.
here and talking with me. I would love to get on your podcast and talk about
Yes,
my seduction learning styles. I think maybe your audience might be able to benefit from that. Um,
absolutely.
yes. But again, thank you so, so much. For folks, if you have questions, again, you can always submit them, DM me. Please reach out to Annette if you have questions for her regarding the 365 days of the Big O and being an SA survivor and how to navigate those challenges.
Mhm.
Do you see clients?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah, I offer intimacy coaching for couples, for individuals. I'm also a queer woman, so especially bi and pan women who are exploring their identity, especially late in life, I'm here for you. And I do retreats twice a year for bi, pan, queer women. And then, of course, I love to work with survivors who are trying to reconnect with their body and like find pleasure again or just find themselves again and feel safe again.
Awesome. Awesome. You should partner with Heal Sweet Home. They do lots of SA survivor stuff, and they also have their curriculum. I think it's called Rashim that they are implementing on how to navigate being an SA survivor. So make sure you check them out
I love
too.
that. I will.
Yeah. All right, folks, thank you all so much for being here. Please make sure SDS is coming up. If you want to get 20% off your registration, please use the code Marla SDS. You can register at sexdownsouth.com. And please make sure you download my free class. Go to velvetlipsexed.com/shop, and you'll find your free Arts and Science of Seduction class there. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for being here. And we'll see you next week. All right. Bye, y'all. Oh.
Nice.
Oh, here we go. Uh-oh. Something's going on. All right. Bye.